We got the new boss here, man.
Yep.
New president of baseball operations,
Yep.
Peter Bendix, joining us here. Peter, is it weird being called the boss? Like, how is it? Has it been a tough adjustment for you, or you are the tops of an organization? I imagine that's a cool dream come true. But is it weird at all? Is it a weird feeling?
It's a little weird to be called the boss, but I'm leaning into it a little bit, and it really is a dream come true. It's something that still feels surreal every day, and I'm just really thankful to be here.
Is it good to, it's the transition can't be too difficult because you left an organization that kind of operates the same way, right? The people that you bring in, you're going to have to be a talent evaluator more than a team that can just go and say, oh, he's a big player, let's throw him a boatload of money. So how has that transition been, being that now you're the guy that's responsible for all this evaluation of talent and deciding who you sign or not or whatnot?
It's a lot to learn, right? There's a lot of new people to learn, players, staff, coaches, all of that. A lot to learn in one off season is a pretty short time.
Right.
But spring training is a great time for that. Everybody's in the same place. Everybody's in a good mood. Everybody's happy to be here. No one's gone 0 for 4. No one's lost any games yet. So it's a really good time to just build those relationships.
Right.
So a dream you've had for a long time. Like, what was when you got the chance to interview for the job? Like, what were the nerves like? Like how did you, I guess, knock the socks off of Bruce Sherman and be like, nailed it? Did you feel like afterwards nailed that interview and you felt like you were going to get the job?
Well, I was in such a great situation with the Rays. I'd been there for 15 years. I knew everybody there so well, developed those relationships, great relationship with their president, with the owner, with really everybody in that organization. So I felt like I was in a win-win, right? If this situation ended up being as good as it turned out to be, then that's wonderful. If not, then I had a wonderful situation with the Rays too.
How do the Rays do it every year? Because I think that's definitely one of the things that stands out is they, very much like this organization, have to be in a division with big-time spenders. How did they go about taking on the likes of the Yankees and the Red Sox and big spending teams?
It starts with people. It really does. It's people and culture and getting the best out of your group and putting people in position to succeed. So that's ultimately how I look at my job, is I need to put other people in position to succeed, have them be supported, get the resources they need, whatever it might be, and then make sure that we've got the right people and really good people. Because if you empower really good people, you're going to get really good results.
It is pretty amazing that there's a bunch of different ways to do this, right? And you can't just assume in baseball that if you spend the most money, you're going to win, because it hasn't proven that way. But I'm amazed at how people can go from grassroots to evaluation to surrounding yourself with, like you said, the right people, and still put a championship contender out there. And what's happened here, what's happened in Tampa, at the end of the year, everybody's just amazed at how are they doing it. Well, you still got to play the games, and there's talent on the field, and people overlook this pitching staff. This pitching staff has been amazing, even with the injuries for the last couple of years, and that has to mean something, but they don't, it doesn't for some reason.
Yeah, you can never have enough pitching, and pitching is the hardest thing to find, and we have a lot of really, really good arms.
Right.
Even with Sandy out, we have a lot of really good arms in the major leagues, in the minor leagues, throughout the whole system, and that's a really appealing situation to be in, because that gives you flexibility, that gives you depth, and ultimately pitching is what wins games.
Right.
Eury Perez was such a sensation last year, but I know that the organization had to be cautious at times. When you came in, is the idea, and I know he's dealing with some finger hand stuff in camp, but is the plan to let him go this year and no restrictions, or is that still a possibility because he is still very, very young?
He is very, very young, and I think with any pitcher, right, these guys, you have to be very reactive to how they're feeling, what the stuff looks like, what does the extension look like, all of these different indicators that might suggest fatigue or that some kind of intervention is necessary. But ultimately, we're just concerned about making sure they stay healthy at every step along the way, and that we're really intentional with whatever the workload is, whatever the plan is, and stay reactive to how the pitcher is feeling. Prioritize recovery, prioritize rest, but also you don't have to necessarily set one round number as being the only drop dead point at which you have to shut somebody down. It's just being reactive throughout the year.
What went into bringing Tim Anderson in? That was kind of the buzz all spring that you guys were thinking about it, and what has been the first impressions of him here?
He's been great. He is hungry. He is hungry to prove that last season was a fluke. There's a long list of guys that have had a bunch of good seasons and then one bad season, and then they get back on and they have good seasons. I think he really wants to be on that list. And he knows what he needs to do. He's been a great teammate. He's been receptive. He understands his circumstances, his situation, and I think he's a perfect fit for our roster.
What do you go into for looking at a guy, for like not the dummies like us who are going to Baseball Reference and being like, the numbers, like you obviously are looking at different angles of things, Peter. Like, so what do you look at and saying like, nah, I think these went into, maybe it was just some things that are off, and that star that he was is still there.
I think you look at a lot of different things. You look at the circumstances of what happened last year. You look at maybe some of the underlying numbers that might be a little bit more predictive, how hard he's hitting the ball, that sort of thing. You look at his health, the physicality, what you expect that to be like moving forward. He's moving great, right? He looks like he's completely free and athletic again. And some of the things that happened last year, I think, can be attributed potentially to some of his physical limitations, some injuries that he had that we're hoping he's through. And he's still young. He's still young, and he still has a lot to prove.
How much, when you get, like, what is the process like once you get the job here? Are you diving like right into the full roster of what they did? Like, what is that? I mean, that seems like we see all the numbers, and I know everybody, you have minor leagues here and all that, but it seems like a daunting thing to, like, I got now a whole organization to cram. What is that process like for you?
I mean, the phrase drinking from a fire hose has been used many times. And my first probably 3 months really before spring training, it was entirely that, because you have to learn new people. You have to learn new players. You have to learn all of these different new circumstances. Who do you talk to about this thing? Who approves these things? And also, you have a normal off season where you have to go through the regular beats of an off season. You have to talk about free agents. You have to talk about trades. You have to protect players for the Rule 5 draft. All of these different things that you're used to, alongside learning very quickly about all of these new people.
Now, baseball is so much bigger than all the other sports. And you have more people in your organization than all the other sports. Are you familiar with any of the players when you come over? Because I know when coaches switch teams, they've either game planned against the team they're going to, or they've seen these guys play. Baseball's a little different in that you go through 3 different levels. Are you familiar with any of the guys, or maybe in the draft you've seen them, or you maybe scouted them any? So how was that when you came here? Did you have any familiarity with, like, a couple of players? Oh, I remember him from here, or...
I mean, you know players from having played against them, right? The Rays play the Marlins every year.
Right.
So you at least see those guys 4 times a year. There were a number of ex-Rays here, actually. Some that I brought over after I came, and some Xavier Edwards, JT Chagua, that were already here that I had some kind of relationship with from before. And, you know, I talked to Joey Wendell a little bit, obviously not a Marlin anymore, but understand his experience from last year. And you really you're 2 or 3 degrees of separation from so many people in this industry, right?
Okay.
So you can talk to the people you know and get put in touch with someone they know, and then you get the download of how things were, what went well, what might they need, and it helps you get more background.
Couple more before we get Chad here. Peter Bendix, new president of Marlins baseball operations, kind enough to sit down with us. Skip Schumacher, great first campaign with the Marlins. When you guys collabed together, like, what was that process like? You know, you obviously did a good job last year, but you know, a new guy comes to run the ops side of things. Was it seamless? Like, how did you find those first interactions with Skip?
He was wonderful. He continues to be wonderful. I flew out to see him right after my first week on the job was at the GM meetings out in Arizona, and then when the GM meetings ended, I flew out to California, had dinner with Skip, got to know him a little bit, and we talked probably every day during the off season. A lot of texting, a lot of phone calls, a lot of conversations. He was incredibly helpful in giving me background on players, on what happened last year, on things to be aware of, things to look out for. And then watching him do his thing at spring training, right? And seeing the way he can command a room, the way he can communicate, the way he can listen. It's really impressive. And you can see that he's comfortable, he knows what he's doing, and he's also so open-minded to new ideas, to different ways of doing things.
And just before, what have you made of Miami? Like, how much have you enjoyed the city? Like, have you found a place? Because I imagine cramming an organization, and then your family's got to move here. You got to find a place. Like, how was that? Have you been settled in? Have you got a chance to settle in at all?
Somewhat. So I'm married, no kids yet, and my wife and I are renting. We moved down right after Christmas. I kind of went back and forth for a while. House is on the market, so if anybody needs a house in St. Pete, let me know. And then we're looking for a house in Miami, hopefully relatively close to the ballpark.
Well, we can't wait for opening day, Peter. Thanks so much for the time, man. Congrats on the gig, and we can't wait to see what you do with this team.
Thanks for having me on.